You Owe Me One Universe by Chad Lucas. Chapter 8, Moonlight Sonata. Ezra. On the scale of great root beers, there was A&W root beer served in a frosted mug, and then there was everything else. When the movie ended, we flocked into the A&W basement of Park Lane for burgers. How fast do you think you could chug the whole thing, Kevin asked, lifting his drink to Ty and me. Maddie Jacobs wrinkled her nose. Why do boys always want to turn food into a contest? Honestly, Kev, a true foodie takes the time to enjoy things. I took a slow sip of my root beer and let out an exaggerated ah. Kevin gasped in offense. No one understands good food better than me. You sure enjoyed all those cookies I smuggled into the theater. Ty patted Kevin's head. We know, Kev. They were delicious. Bet I could drink it in 6 seconds, Miranda Wong said. Think you can beat that? Kevin stared at her in admiration. Probably not, no. Maddie leaned forward. I've been thinking, we should have a talent show at school. Like a root beer chugging contest? Kevin asked. Maddie rolled her eyes. No, an actual talent show. So basically you want to sing in front of the whole school, Miranda teased. A talent show would be great, I said. You're a great singer, Maddie. She beamed at me. You should play the guitar, too. You're amazing. Ty tapped his knuckles on the table. I like this. Ezra needs a place to show off his skills. He's in. Right, Ezra? I guess, yeah. I couldn't really say no, not with everybody looking at me. The idea of playing at school sounded terrifying, but maybe kind of fun, too. I could do stand-up, Ty continued. I've been saving up jokes about Mr. Harding's sweater vests since September. I'm sure Miss Burt would get the school band to play, Miranda said. I could bake stuff and sell it, Kevin said. We could make it a fundraiser or something. That's a great idea. If we raise money for the school music program, Miss Burt will definitely say yes. Maddie turned to me. Let's talk to her tomorrow at lunch. I blinked. How come you're all volunteering me for stuff? Because you have excellent leadership potential, Citizen Commiserec, Ty offered in a dead-on impression of Miss Firth, our social studies teacher. Everyone cracked up. Ty was going to be great at comedy. But save the show until March after basketball season, he added. We need to stay focused if we want to win the title this year. I guess we could wait till then, Maddie agreed. That would give us time to get organized and get people to sign up. Miranda swiped 3 of Kevin's fries. I always forget you're artsy and sporty, she said to me. I pressed my palms together. I am a complex soul. You're weird, Miranda said. That's good. Weird is interesting. Kevin slid his fries away from Miranda. Am I interesting? You're a good baker and kind of funny. Miranda darted her hand in and snatched a few more fries. But I'm not into boys, so don't get any ideas. Kevin shrugged. Fair enough. We tossed around more ideas for a talent show before we headed out. The more we talked about it, the more it sounded like fun. I was halfway home when I thought to check in with Brian. It was a bummer he ended up missing the movie. I started a couple texts, one asking about his visit with his dad, then one about Maddie's idea for a talent show, but I deleted both. I figured he maybe didn't want to talk about jail, and I didn't want to make him feel like he'd missed out on a good time. I settled on writing, I bet you're bummed that you missed smelling the guys in front of us at the movies who took a bath in cheap colon. Ha, I meant cologne, but colon works too. Brian replied with a barfing emoji. I saw 3 dots like he was going to say something else, but then he disappeared. Brian seemed quiet on Monday, too, but I didn't get much chance to talk to him because Maddie grabbed me at recess to prepare our pitch for the talent show. At lunchtime, we headed to the music room to find Miss Burt. I didn't spend a lot of time in the music room since I wasn't in band, but Miss Burt let me leave my guitar in there on days I had lessons after school, and I liked the vibe in here every once in a while. Today, Miss Burt was at her desk eating salad out of a plastic container. Band kids were scattered around the room. At the far end, a shaggy-haired kid with their back to us was playing the piano. I recognized the piece, something classical I'd heard around the house. My dad's favorite musical genre was bewigged dead dudes. The song was slow and haunting and kind of hypnotic. I was tempted to hang back and listen, but Maddie was on a mission. She marched to Miss Burt's desk, and I followed. Before Miss Burt could even set down her fork, Maddie launched into the whole pitch. Miss Burt's eyes lit up when Maddie mentioned the fundraiser part. This is a great idea, she said. I'll take it up with Miss Florman, but I'm sure she'll agree. There are so many talented kids in this school. It would be nice to give you all a place to shine. Great, Maddie beamed, and we're happy to do all the organizing for it. Right, Ezra? Right. I wasn't sure what I'd gotten myself into, but I had a feeling that my part in organizing might be doing whatever Maddie said. We're having a talent show? A kid with a fro hawk who was spinning on a drum stool piped up. Can anyone join? Sure, I said, that's the point. He grinned. Cool, can I play drums? I play percussion in band, which is fun and all, but Miss Burt hasn't picked any songs yet where I get to use a whole kit. I've been drumming since I was 3. My dad and my uncles have a band, and I play with them sometimes. This is Caleb Drummond, Miss Burt offered. He's in 7th grade. He's very energetic. And this is NECA. They play bass. Caleb waved toward a kid with long twists in their hair who was eating rice from a container. NECA nodded at me. Hey, NECA, we should play together for the talent show, Caleb exclaimed. He stopped spinning and looked back at me. What do you play? Ezra's a wicked guitar player. I looked up. The kid at the piano had turned around. I hadn't recognized him from behind now that his hair was long, but it was Victor. I saw you at your recital in June, he reminded me. He nodded at Maddie. You were great, too. Maddie glared at Victor like she wanted to vaporize him with her mind. My mind spun while I tried to match everything I knew about Victor from last year with this guy who was hanging out in the music room playing a gorgeous song on the piano. Moonlight Sonata, I blurted out, as the name of the piece popped into my head. Maddie gave me a curious look. Victor's lips curled in a tiny half-grin. You know your stuff. I didn't know you could play like that. I winced as the words left my mouth. Of course I didn't know he could play like that. I barely knew anything about him. He shrugged. Maybe I'll do the talent show too. That would be great. Maddie's voice dripped with snark. The talent show is open to anyone who is committed and won't just disappear. The room went quiet. Awkward, Caleb said. Miss Burt cleared her throat. Why don't you see me tomorrow, Maddie? I'll talk to Miss Florman at the end of the day and... Bro, there you are. You coming? Everyone turned. Colby stood in the doorway, skateboard tucked under his arm. He was in a hoodie and shorts, like always, because Colby was one of those guys who never wore pants, not even in December. He was looking at Victor, but he smirked when he noticed everyone staring. Did I interrupt something? He nodded at me. Hey, Ezra. Maddie. Hey, I said. Maddie exhaled a loud Yeah, I'm coming. Victor rose from the piano bench. Our eyes met as he passed, and he half smiled again before he ducked to avoid Maddie, who was still working on telekinetic vaporization. As they headed down the hall toward the back exit, I heard the wheels of Colby's skateboard on the floor, and Victor's footsteps picked up the pace. No riding in the halls, Miss Burt called, but they were gone. Good riddance, Maddie muttered. I was curious why she couldn't stand Victor and Colby. She used to hang out with them all the time since they were dating her 2 best friends, Colby with Gemma and Victor with Alicia. Obviously, something had changed, though. But that was in the back of my mind. Mostly I remembered when I was the one hurrying after Colby, trying to keep up. I told Maddie I'd see her later and found Ty and Kevin in the cafeteria. Ty gave me a high five when I shared that Miss Burt loved the talent show idea. We should film it, Kevin said. We can put your performance online. Maybe it'll go viral. I don't want to be internet famous, Kev. I glanced around. Where's Brian? He went home for lunch, Ty said. By himself? Kevin shrugged. You know Brian. When the bell rang, we headed to French. Brian slid in at the last second before Monsieur Bellevue started class. He only gave me a glance before he opened his binder. Everything okay? I whispered. What? Yeah, he fiddled with his pen. How did your, thing go? Good. Miss Burt's on board for the talent show, but I almost mentioned how strange it was to find Victor playing the piano, but I stopped. Brian seemed distracted, or maybe he really didn't want to talk. Eventually he glanced up. But what? Oh, we still need Miss Florman's permission, but Miss Burt thinks she'll say yes. Yeah, probably. He was still playing with his pen, eyes down. It felt like something he would have done a year ago when he was too shy to talk much in school, but he hadn't been like that with me for a long time. I wanted to ask again if there was something bothering him. Then he filled my face as I wondered if I was bothering him. I kept trying to be chill since the kiss, even though I couldn't just turn off my feelings, but maybe he noticed and found it was weird. I was starting to think maybe Nat was right and we should talk about it more. I wanted to ask him to come over after school, but when the bell rang at the end of the day, he mumbled a goodbye and took off without even waiting for Kevin. When I got home, I plugged in my guitar and distracted myself by thinking about the talent show. I ran through a few favorite songs, thinking about what to play. If I was going to perform at school, I had to pick something good. But as I was running through riffs, my mind drifted again, bouncing between Brian and Victor and Colby. When I fell asleep, I had the weirdest dream. I was supposed to play a concert, but Colby and Brian were driving me to the concert hall, and they kept getting lost. I was frustrated that we were going to be late and kept trying to give directions from the back seat, but Colby acted like he couldn't understand me, and Brian didn't say a word. Just when I was ready to give up, I was suddenly on stage with my guitar, but I was in my underwear. And Victor was the only person in the audience, and he was in his underwear too. Waking up was a relief. It was only a dream, I reminded myself. But it took a while to shake all the strange feelings that came with it. Chapter 9. Okay/not okay, Brian. I was working on a math assignment when Mom knocked on my door, then burst right in. I bit back a sigh. Why knock if you're not going to wait for an answer? Dinner's ready, she said. Be there in a minute. I had 2 problems left, though I'd been staring at one for 5 minutes. Math was my toughest subject, but I usually didn't get this stuck. I usually didn't have this much homework either, but it had been harder to concentrate and get things done in class all week. Everyone was so loud, maybe because we were close to the holiday break. Come eat, Brian. Your homework isn't going anywhere. Mom set a hand on my shoulder. I shrugged her off. I said, in a minute, leave me alone. Mom drew a breath. A flash of guilt ran through me. I didn't know why I'd snapped like that. Mom's brow furrowed as she sat on my bed. Brian, not every parent would say this, and I certainly wouldn't say it to Richie, but maybe you should ease up. You had a 96 average on your report card last week, and right now I think you might be hangry, so take a break and come eat. I sighed. Fine. Eating did help, though I didn't admit it out loud. I shoveled pasta into my mouth and barely heard a word until Richie poked me with his foot under the table. I looked up. What? Mom and Richie were both looking at me. I asked what you wanted for Christmas, Mom said. Christmas, ugh. I still needed to get gifts for Mom and Richie. I should get something for Ezra too, and Mrs. Cleland and Gabe since they'd been so good to me. Brian, is there anything you need for basketball or a new backpack or... I don't know, okay? My cheeks flushed. Richie shot me a dirty look. Geez, what's your problem? He asked. Richie, Mom scolded. She turned to me and hesitated. Hey, it's been a while since you saw Dr. Bender. Maybe you should have a check-in. There it was. Mom thought I should go back to therapy. Even though I'd had the same thought, somehow it felt worse coming from her. I looked down at my plate. Yeah, sure, I mumbled. Maybe after Christmas. I'm okay right now. Mom sighed, but didn't push. I finished eating and hurried back to my room. The next afternoon, my body was full of bees as I changed into my uniform for our last game before holiday break. I had barely talked to anyone all day. Super awkward weirdo syndrome had returned with a vengeance. I waited till my teammates left the locker room before I went to the sink and splashed water on my face. Then I had an argument with my reflection. Brian versus Brian, round 4,592. Me. I'm okay. Also me. You sure about that? Me. Mom and Richie are doing fine. My grades are great, and I'm the starting point guard on the school basketball team. My plan was working. I'm okay. Also me. If you have to tell yourself you're okay, you're not okay. The fluorescent lights in our aging gym made me wince when I stepped out of the locker room. I was hyper aware of everything. The noise of the crowd, the worn white and green paint on the gym walls, the squeak of every sneaker. Usually I settled down once I warmed up and my blood got pumping, but today the bees didn't go away. After Ty won the jump ball, I dribbled past my man and flung a pass to Andre in the corner. He launched a three-pointer that missed. I rushed toward the basket, grabbed the rebound, and shot. My defender slapped the rim as I released the ball, and the shot rolled off the rim. I expected to hear the referee's whistle, but it didn't come. Fairview rebounded the ball and raced down the court. That was a foul, I barked at the ref as I hurried to catch up. He gave me a silent stare. Ty tilted his head at me. Nothing went right in the first quarter. Our shooting was cold, our defense broke down, and we gave up easy baskets. 5 minutes into the quarter, Coach had seen enough and called timeout. His words faded into the crowd noise as I perched on the bench, one knee bouncing. My eyes drifted to the scoreboard. Fairview was up 18-8 already. We were embarrassing ourselves. As the huddle ended, I was 2 steps into the court before Coach called me back. Didn't you hear me? Ezra's in. I'm giving you a breather. He paused. Are you doing okay, Brian? You don't seem like yourself today. Heat spread across my face. I mumbled that I was fine and went back to the bench. Coach left me there for most of the second quarter. The team found a better rhythm without me, but we were still 10 points down at halftime. During the break, I got in as many shots as I could, trying to find a groove, but I missed my first shot of the third quarter. A few minutes later, I was guarding my man when I ran smack into the chest of another Fairview player. My man coasted to the hoop for a layup. Harrison collected the ball and inbounded it to me. Call the screens and help on defense, I seethed at him. Don't stand there like a pylon next time. Man, chill out, he snapped back, which made me even madder. The Fairview guard overheard us. You can't stop me anyway, he crowed as he jogged down court. Now I was boiling. As I reached our 3-point line, I shook him with a crossover dribble and sped past. He chased me down and fouled me from behind as I released my shot. The whistle blew. I tumbled to the floor. The ball rolled around the rim and fell out. I slapped the floor and swore. The words flew out of my mouth, not just one, but a creative 4-hit combo before I realized I'd yelled loud enough for the whole gym to hear. The referee blew his whistle again. Technical foul on 13. No need for that kind of language, son. Everyone was looking at me. My teammates covered their mouths, either in shock or because they were trying not to laugh. Half the Fairview players and kids in the stands were openly snickering. A few parents murmured. I was glad my mom wasn't around to watch, but Mrs. Cleland was in the stands with Gabe and Brittany. I met her eyes as Ty helped me off the floor and then quickly looked away. As we waited for Fairview to shoot a free throw for my technical foul, Ty put an arm around my shoulders. What's up, B? Your ghost pepper level's spicy today. I don't know, I mumbled. My adrenaline buzzed and my whole body was tingling. I didn't know why I was so angry. I hadn't even felt this fiery when I'd punched Victor back in June. It was freaking me out. The Fairview player missed, then it was my turn to shoot 2 shots for the foul before my outburst. At the free throw line, I bounced the ball 3 times, spun it in my hands, took a deep breath, and exhaled as I released. I made both shots, the first thing I hadn't screwed up all game. As the second shot dropped through the mesh, the whistle blew. I turned and saw Jaden coming in to replace me. I walked to the bench with my head down. I'm sorry, Coach, I murmured. He stopped me. I didn't take you out to punish you. I wanted to make sure you're all right. The way he said it, like he was worried, made me wish he was mad instead. I just got frustrated. Six was talking trash, and I let it get to me. It won't happen again. Coach let me go. I sat at the end of the bench and draped my warm-up shirt over my head to tune everything else out. Someone plopped beside me. Without looking, I knew it was Ezra. What's going on? He asked quietly. I wish people would stop asking that. Oh, Ezra's voice hitched. Sorry. I didn't mean to sound so harsh. I should have been the one to say sorry, not just for snapping at him. A guilt bomb went off in my brain. Ezra was always there for me, and I knew I'd broken his heart a little, but I didn't know what to say, and I hadn't told him about my panic attack, and I'd basically been the worst friend. I should say sorry, but my throat was tight. I couldn't risk crying during a game. Coach glanced my way at the start of the 4th quarter, but he didn't send me back in. He was probably worried I'd freak out again. Obviously, I wasn't leader material. We lost by 6 points. I trudged out to shake hands with Fairview and murmur an apology to the referee. Then I rushed to the locker room. The team changed in silence. It was our first loss, and we all knew we blew this one. I wasn't the only one in a funk, although my funk felt deep enough to swallow the whole room. I was halfway dressed when Andre said, Yo, B, I didn't know you could swear like that. Jaden snickered. I'd never heard all those words in that order before. I'm honestly impressed. Everyone laughed. Despite myself, I cracked a smile. My teammates' jokes made it seem like less of a big deal, but I knew I'd never live it down. They'd tease me for the rest of the season. Mrs. Cleland, Gabe, and Brittany were waiting for me outside the locker room. They offered me a ride home. I told them I could walk, but Mrs. Cleland insisted. It's pouring out. You'll never win this argument with Mom, Gabe chimed in. Just accept it. I gave in. Mrs. Cleland wasn't kidding. The rain was falling in sheets, and we got drenched as we scrambled to her car. Gabe sat in the back with me. I could tell they wanted to talk, so as Mrs. Cleland pulled out of the parking lot, I got the jump on the lecture. I'm sorry, I swore, I said. It was an accident. It won't happen again. She caught my eye in the rearview mirror. Brian, I'm not upset about that. The buzz in my chest returned. I couldn't wait to get out of this car. I wanted to be away from everybody. I never felt that way around Gabe and Brittany. What is wrong with me? Gabe cleared his throat. Last Christmas was hard. Dad loved Christmas, and without him, he swallowed. It was rough. Same, Brittany said. I cried a lot last December, and it was stressful. Mom always did the shopping and the baking and all the little things that made Christmas special. I felt like I had to hold everything together for my brother and sister to make sure they didn't have this sad, miserable Christmas, but all I wanted to do was stay in bed. I tugged at the seatbelt, pressing into my chest. But your parents died, I blurted out, feeling like a jerk for stating the obvious. My dad's not gone, he's just in jail. You're still allowed to grieve, Brian, Mrs. Cleland said. It's okay if the holidays feel hard. Be kind to yourself, all right? If you want to talk about anything, you know we're here. Everything they were saying tilted me off balance. I'm just having a bad day. I wanted to insist, but it hit me how irritated I'd been by the decorations everywhere and cheesy music playing in every store and classmates talking about their plans for the break. I thought about how Dad always lit up watching Richie tear into his gifts and how we stayed up on Christmas night watching NBA games until I fell asleep on the couch. I tried to stop, but it was too late. Tears started streaming down my face. Gabe slid into the middle seat and hugged me. When we reached my house, Mrs. Cleland parked and we sat there until I calmed down. Gabe kept an arm around me, and Brittany and Mrs. Cleland said comforting things. I wasn't embarrassed about crying in front of them. They had all seen me cry before. Usually I felt better after I let it out, and they gave me hugs and pep talks, but not today. I said goodbye and hurried inside, where I headed for the shower and stayed in the steaming hot water until Richie banged on the door and asked if I was ever coming out. By then, the bees in my chest had settled into a cold, hard brick.